Hi,
Hello.
Sandra. How are you?
I'm great. Good to see
It's
you
good
today.
to see you again. Yes.
Welcome to your second home, the Chamber of Commerce.
I know. And this year's banquet theme is Heritage.
Yes, where history meets opportunity.
And that's right. I'm excited. I mean, there's so much to learn about our community. I mean, I know we're celebrating the 250th anniversary of the United States, but also of the Chamber.
88 years.
88 years, wow. Well, we're gonna take a few moments, walk around the community, meet some people, see some landmarks, and learn something.
It's gonna be great. I'm so excited about it.
I wanted to start my research by consulting a local historian at the Oxford Library, Mark Pace. So the history earliest, would you say, goes back to
1680s, 1690s for Europeans. By the time Europeans come here, like specifically the Tuscarora had been expatriated from this area and from North Carolina, there had been a really bitter war with them, and they had been defeated, and most of them left and went upstate New York.
This is the early part of the 18th century.
Correct. This would be like 1710, 1719 along in there. I don't know the exact time period, it's that decade. And so what it does is opens up this area to settlement.
And those who have grown up here have found plenty of evidence of the Indians that used to live in this area. In fact, I made a trip to the Corbett Museum in Henderson to speak to Ken Stegall about the special display of Native American arrowheads that were found right here in Vance County.
And then this is Bennett Perry. He was a lawyer in town. He was a big arrowhead collector. Thousands and thousands of arrowheads. Yeah, he would spend his weekends walking around the lake, picking them up, especially when the lake level was low. And I think he gave a huge amount of them to North Carolina,
Wow.
UNC.
Well, this area was a lot of Indians were here. One of the earliest written descriptions of this region actually comes from a man named William Byrd II. In the early 1700s, Byrd helped survey the boundary between Virginia and Carolina. And as he traveled through this wilderness, he wrote detailed journals describing the land, the forests, and the Native American communities living here. I wanted to find out exactly how Vance County was born, so I decided to consult another local historian, Tim Blackburn.
Carolina, when it was granted, ran from the Atlantic to the Pacific.
Wow.
And so as it was settled, typically east to west, this area called Williamsboro was originally called Nutbush, and you can see Nutbush up here, but this whole area was Nutbush.
In the mid-1700s, long before Henderson existed, Williamsboro was already becoming an important colonial community. Williamsboro developed as part of Granville County, which was one of the original colonial divisions of North Carolina under the English Crown. Alongside the Native Americans and the European background people, there was another group of people who were here. They were the African Americans.
As I mentioned before, in 1860, the largest slaveholding county in North Carolina was Granville County. And there were about 24,000 people living here. About 12,000 were enslaved. And interestingly enough, about 1,000 African Americans in this area were free, or they were called free blacks.
This is pre-Civil War?
This is pre-Civil War.
Okay.
Very unusual.
And how is that possible?
I think the reason why is almost all the people that come here in the 1740s and 50s, when they come here, they bring their slaves with them. They come here because the land is cheap and it's getting crowded up. Now, fast forward a bit, in the early 1800s, if you were enslaved and you became emancipated, or you bought your own freedom, or you were freed by your slave owner, Virginia passed a law that you had a year to get out of the state of Virginia.
Is that right? Okay.
Because they didn't want a lot of free black people walking around.
But influence others.
Right. They saw it as a threat to the slave system. And don't forget, in Virginia, the largest slave insurrection in U.S. history was Nat Turner's
That's
rebellion, which is only a mere 90 miles that way. But look, my point being, so these free African Americans, they would just come on over the border. They had, if they didn't leave Virginia within a year, they would be re-enslaved. So there was already a network here of free African Americans, people like the Hawleys and the Andersons, the Chavises, John Chavis, very well-known free African American. As a matter of fact, he lived in Williamsboro, in what's now Vance.
Up north on.
Right, it's going to be right along in here, Flat Creek area. There's a church there called Flat Creek.
The mention of Flat Creek Baptist Church sent me down another path of research regarding the role of African Americans in this community. So I paid a visit to Henderson native and North Carolina Central University archivist, Andre Van. Now this church goes back, how far back?
This church dates back all the way back to the 1860s, where African Americans, sometimes used to worship with white congregation. Usually the plantation owners would allow them to have some kind of religious life. But that was one of the things that African Americans kind of looked to. What choices did they have after emancipation? And the creation of their own institution was primarily one of the most important things.
That's right.
And nothing more reflective of that than the church life
Having
here.
a church.
And that's so important. And the books are one of the older families, older African-American families who oftentimes took the names from those who had formerly enslaved. And that's one thing that you will note. The Taylors offered and created one of the first, one of the first Presbyterian churches that was out here that became present-day the Cotton Memorial Presbyterian Church. But prior to that, there was a Presbyterian community church life that took place here.
Why Presbyterian and not, say, Episcopalian?
Well, interestingly, the Presbyterians, and when I say Presbyterians, I really mean the Presbyterians of the North. One of the first things that they did was to seek to provide a great opportunity for education here.
Amazing.
And so education becomes a very important part of that. So religion, very important part. And today that Presbyterian church, little small Sabbath school that started out here, became many years later what we know as the Henderson Institute. And then many of them ended up migrating into Henderson City proper.
Okay.
From this is suburbs as we would call it.
Right.
And migrated and really went on to help create each and every little organization, from Masonic groups to other churches that are spawned.
Community, family was important. Their faith, Christianity, was important to them. The representation in government was important. Education was important.
Land
ownership. I mean, this is
But in the end, I think it's always also about that big overarching, which is about family, right?
I mean, these are lessons that are relevant today. I mean, these are exactly what we need to hear about. For all Americans.
And it's about the stories that we tell and what the real realities are in people's lives, right? And I just think that's the part of the story that African Americans had to learn to overcome many of those great obstacles that they face. And as a result of that, this city and this state is the better because people chose to work within the confines of the agencies and the groups in which they kind of work with.
But not every black person in our community was privileged enough to be free. Many lived their entire lives in slavery.
Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me.
This is a slave cemetery. These odd-shaped rocks coming out of the ground are actually the grave markers.
Sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home.
Nutbush Presbyterian Church is the most important one in that area up there other than St. John's. Those two churches were the most important.
When settlers first came into this area in the early 1700s, they didn't just bring tools and farming equipment, they brought their faith with them. Just like back in the mother country where the church was the center of the community, so also here. St. John's Parish was founded in 1746, not at this location, not with a structure like this, but it was there, 25 years before the American Revolution. And one of the most prominent members of this congregation was a man named John Penn. Our county was not immune to what was happening in the years leading up to the Revolutionary War. In fact, right here in Granville County, people realized that things were not right between us and Britain, and one such man was John Penn. John Penn settled here in Granville County. He trained as a lawyer and quickly became involved in colonial politics. By the mid-1770s, Penn had become an outspoken supporter of independence. In 1775, he was chosen to represent North Carolina in the Continental Congress in Philadelphia. And the following year, in 1776, John Penn did something that would forever place his name in American history. He signed the Declaration of Independence. This monument was erected by the Daughters of the American Revolution back in 2014. But the words they chose from John Penn are so important. It says, "For God's sake, my good sir, encourage our people, animate them to dare even to die for their country." And this man was right here in Stovall, part of Granville County, but also connected to what later on became Vance County, which goes to tell you that our little corner of the world was very important when it came to the American Revolution, even touching the whole world. But this is only the beginning of our community's story. In 1811, Samuel Revis would build his home right here on the corner of Young and Garnet Streets, the first building in Henderson. And through the decades, our growing community would face a civil war, and afterwards, the birth of Vance County, named after Senator Zebulon B. Vance. And there would be so much more to come in the 20th century and beyond.